All right, I think I'm gonna attack this breaker panel finally. I had cut these off and then panicked when I cut this with the Sawzall, and it frayed just enough, like it just flexed out these wires just enough that I could never crimp them enough to get into that slot there. It's a tighter lug than these big ones. So I did, at the advice of somebody else, I bought a bigger lug, and it will mount onto a grounding bar. I think I can mount a grounding bar down here, a small one, and with that big lug on it, and put it in there, but I'm gonna ask an electrician first. But in the meantime, I'm gonna hold off on this, and I've installed two 23 slot grounding bars, and I did it with a single screw here and a single screw there. I thought the way this is laid out that I would mount it here, and I would just put two screws here, but those are farther up. This is farther apart than these, or vice versa, by a 1/4 inch. So there is a spot here where there's a single screw hole, and there's a nub here and a nub here that line up with these two holes in the bar, and you just slot those over the nubs. They're like this, and so it anchors that bar from going anywhere with just a single screw. It makes it a little bit trickier for getting your grounds in there. You just don't have as much room here, but I'll bring my grounds down and just slip them in here cleanly in the back of the panel. I put a sticker on that came with each one. There are these guys, the Homeline 23 terminals, grounding bar kit. I just bought them at Home Depot for like $9 a piece. So once I trim these back and keep the labels, I'm going to take the label off and hang it, hook it onto the black lines, and I'll put the black lines aside. I'll put the neutrals aside, and I'll take all my ground wires and just load them all into here. Get that clean at the back of the panel. Then I'll take all the neutrals and I'll put them in the neutral bars here. And then I'll take my breakers and start running the blacks and into those, or double power. Like on my Coves, it's a 2-pole 20 amp, and you run the black and the white into the breaker, which is different than almost any other setup, but that's how the Cove heaters wire up. So anyway, I am not an electrician, so don't watch this video to do it this way. I just watched a million videos, helped out a little bit doing this, and then I tried to get somebody to come help me with this, but I couldn't. So that's what we're doing, wiring up the panel. See how it goes. I will have it inspected before we click power on, but at this point I know this is how it's done, and I feel comfortable with it. So I got everything spread out here, breakers and whatever else I might need. All right, so I've trimmed back the first wire, just opened up the casing, cut off the end with my label on it. It's a long label, and then hooked it on the black. And then my neutrals and grounds don't matter. They'll go in any slot. The main thing is I got to make sure my power is labeled. So I did the second wire here, and I'll just pull it aside and keep doing that. Keep working my way through the wires. Because I've got two orange wires coming in, or two 10 gauge wires coming in, I made sure I labeled my white and my black. So water heater, and I believe that one's for my 30 amp RV receptacle. So I'll label that one properly too. All right, it looks like a mess, but it's orderly. Everything's labeled, all the power, 50 amp RV, both labeled. I even labeled a neutral just for fun. Everything's labeled off of one side. So I'm gonna start running my grounds and try and make them look neat and orderly, and just L them in and have them nice against the back panel. Tighten them all in. Then I'll start running my neutrals into the neutral bar, and then I'll start loading breakers. And then I'll move and do the right side. Here we go. Okay, partway in, I started at the bottom and ran my lines up into there, my grounds. And then I'm just working my way up, keeping everything tucked back in so I can come across this, so I can have plenty of room to work outside of that. With this insulation, it's kind of dark in here, so I got working light. Even though it's light out there, it's actually going fairly smooth. All right, I finished pulling all the neutrals and wiring them in. I think there's 17 on that side, and there should be 18 or so on this side. And now I start wiring. See how this goes. I looked down and saw one more copper hanging down, so I ran that up and in. Something I just discovered. I grabbed my first neutral line and I was like, wait a minute. I forgot that on the Cove heaters, the 3 circuits for that, I was supposed to mark these so that I could go into the breakers with them. On the Cove heaters, even though they're 20 amp, they run, the way they run, you do the black and the white into the breaker. Which won't be difficult. I'll just go back and I'll trace the Cove heater one all the way back, and I'll find those and I'll set them aside and label them properly. So all is not lost. That was an easy fix. I just grabbed the labeled black for Coves on this circuit, went back, grabbed the neutral, and just slid it back into this case. So I'll have 3 circuits that have that black and white cased off to the side. All right, I've got all the 20 amp neutrals in place except for my 3 Cove heater lines. And then I need to run the neutrals for my 10 gauge and my 6 gauge wire and plug them in. So it's looking pretty neat and tidy. I like the way it looks, and it's going really smooth so far. So first time I've wired a panel. All right, so I've run all the heavier neutrals as well up into here, keeping the panel neat and tidy, pushing everything to the back corner and L-ing them in. And then also, just like my Cove heaters, the Cove heaters are a double pole 20, and it'll take a black and a white instead of running your neutral to the bar. And then on 12-2 wire. And then the same thing on hot water heater. It's a 30 amp double pole breaker, 10-2 wire, and you have a black and a white on there. Again, I am not an electrician, so if you want to understand that, go read about it. I just read, ask someone if I need to, and they're like, yeah, this is how you do it, and then I do it. I can't explain. Well, I don't want to explain further than that, otherwise I might say something wrong. So I'm even nervous about including what I'm including here, but anyway, if this gives you confidence to get with a friend who's an electrician and learn how to do this, wonderful. All right, so I've put the first breaker in and wired her up. It's the Coves, bedrooms 1 through 3. 20 amp double pole that takes the black and the white wire. And then I've started labeling this. I just realized when an electrician friend came by, he's like, I always like this up at the top. That way a kid can't reach up in here. Not that kid would ever be in here, but anyway. And then once I looked at the numbering on here, I'm thinking, oh, I think I just flipped it upside down, which it doesn't matter. But so anyway, I went ahead and wrote out these numbers on here so I can just turn and keep track on here. I didn't want to write it on here. I do have a carpenter's pencil, but I want to transfer this to there nice and neat once it's all set. So I'll just document on here and I'm gonna work my way down, lay things out. All right, I've got one whole side done. I think it looks pretty nice. First panel ever. So I think it's all good. I did drop in 4 double 20s. I know some say, don't do that in new construction, but that way I can do single 20s all the way down here. And I ran way more circuits than I needed to now that I have done it and have continued to add to my knowledge of stuff. And on a next house, if we build another one, I don't know if I'll do the wiring again. I just kind of like knowing that I know how to do it now. But if I do it again, I'd run fewer circuits and throw in 14 gauge wire for like all the lights. Someone told me you could run like all of your 72 can lights on one thing, or half and half. But I mean, there's all kinds of arguments. Well, don't do that, because then if one breaker goes down or one line goes down, then all the lights are down or whatever. So I'm happy with this setup, but it is a lot of circuits, so I had to double pull those. But the rest, I think this whole side will be filled and it'll all be single 20s. These guys right here. So that took me about 3 hours to do that left side, just working methodically. And I went ahead and documented everything carefully here. I'm going to take a picture of this right now, so in case this gets lost. I have it. Lots of wire. I mean, it's kind of funny how much debris you have cutting all this down. It's funny too how daunting this was to me. I walked past it every day for 2 weeks maybe. I was like, I should do that today. I was like, no, I'll wait till someone can come help me. And I actually texted a friend of mine who is not an electrician but has wired houses as a builder himself, doing spec homes and stuff, and is comfortable doing it. And he said, I'll be there Tuesday. And I was like, I might give it a shot, and then I'll have you come and inspect all my work. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I think I will have him help me with these guys just because I can't mess them up. I'm confident I know what to do, but I'll probably save those. But this way I can close it all up, because drywall starts tomorrow. And I was just so nervous they're just going to fill this with mud and splatter and dust, and it'd just be a mess. So at least now I can slap the panel on it. Call it good. Yeah, it's looking nice. There's something daunting about this, but deeply satisfying if you like making things orderly and neat and doing things proper, and it just has a clean layout to it. It's kind of nice, satisfying. All right, round 2. I got 20 circuits of grounds installed. Now I'll do the neutrals. Let's get after it. It's 9 o'clock. I started at 4:30, maybe. Tired. All right, I got all the neutrals run. For no rhyme or reason, I spread these out across the bar. These I kind of had tightened up and then spread them out. Well, just tightened them up, actually. All my neutrals are right in that gap. These are spread out. I don't know why. I just wanted to see if it made any difference. But 20 neutrals on one side. It's getting a little crowded back in here. Hopefully I can run all of my hots. Get these 20 amp breakers in. All single poles, I believe. Final push. All right, she's done. And I think it looks darn good. I got that whole side wired up. I do like the method. I watched a couple videos and guys were just putting their grounds and their neutrals into this bar and then coming back and putting their power in. And I guess that's fine. This is the first time I've done a panel, but an electrician friend came over and he's like, throw in the grounding bars on each side and run your grounds, then do your neutrals, and then come back in and do your power into your breakers. And that just seemed to be really slick and clean and kept things separated. And I've got a good layout here, hopefully, if it's done right. But now I can put the panel on it and don't have to worry about drywallers tomorrow. And then I've got my notes here as they come down. So, oops. Oh, crud. I forgot to write my last two notes. I got so anxious. Oh, I know what they are. The oven and then the crawl space. Luckily, the last one was this bottom one, and I know that's crawl space, and the second to the last one was the oven. So, anyway, until that moment, I was just going slow, methodical. It is 10 o'clock at night. I think I started at 4:30, maybe 4. 4:30, probably. 4, I don't know. So it took me 5 or 6 hours. First time, all alone, just working. Got a debris field. Someone suggested in another video to have a trash can, and now I wish I did. So I'm not sure where to put all this crap. But that's it. Tuesday, I'm having an electrician friend come over, and we will plug in our main power cords here. I'll have him double check everything. We'll go out, tie in all the wires for the disconnect and the meter box. And then I can call them and say, send me power. I think so. I'm good to go. Exciting. This feels really cool. Feels good. Felt like when you're watching a movie and someone's like putting together, disconnecting a bomb or something like that. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And you're just kind of riveted. That's the way it felt like internally to be putting this together. Like, all right, everything's run to here. And it kind of feels good that I ran it here. I am nervous to flick that power for the first time and see that everything works, but I've wired an entire basement before that had everything in it except for a kitchen. And we flicked power on and everything was fine. So I'm fingers crossed. Same thing here. Looks good though. One last look. And we're done. Okay. Feels good to have that done.